Hey everybody, and welcome back to a brand new video. Now, it's been a while since the last video and I apologize. And the reason for the delay has mostly been because I've been working on a lot of things that you would classify as invisible work, i.e. things that you can't necessarily show and tell about. And I'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end of the video or at some point today and talk about exactly what I've been working on. But before that, right before this video, I actually realized that even though I've been working on this game, I actually haven't myself play through it or walk through it the way it's meant to be, hopefully by the time when it's finished. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hit play real quick, and I'm going to be talking about all the new changes and all the new obstacles and whatnot that we've been dealing with, and at the same time hopefully playing the game with you guys for the first time as well. Alright, so this is where the game is going to start, and there's going to be a cinematic intro, cutscene, etc., blah blah blah. It's a work in progress per se, but yeah. So this is the first spawn room, and as you can already see from the last time, it already feels a lot more fuller, a lot more filled. I promised you guys that the hands, the standard UE4 hands, would be gone by now, and I apologize because they aren't. And animation has been just kind of been like a debate of our existence so far, kind of. Simply because it's just weird, because for example that little nurses button here is going to be an interactable pickup where the animation picks it up, and we've just been running into all sorts of troubles as to how to get that done. For example, the animation needs to reach down and reach forward, and figuring out, well, which bone do we put the camera on and what the best general approach of doing that is. And we've had a lot of discussions. I mean, the way we really want it is simply for the hand to actually reach out and actually be able to pick it up. At the same time, I do realize that a lot of games, they do this kind of scrappy stuff where when you press, let's say you're hovering over this item and you press the E button or whatnot, and that item disappears and the hand kind of pulls it up, right? And that is something which is universally acceptable, and ultimately if we are not able to do what we really want to do, we might actually go for an approach like that per se. But it's just been, getting the hand animations working and getting whatnot, and just kind of figuring out how the best way to do it. Simply because there are other obstacles, right, with hand animations, whether it's the one that you use over there on the door button, or over here, it's always like, well, hey, where's the player, right? You need to figure out, well, what the best way for the animation to work is. Do we need to snap him in place? Do we need to do this? Do we need to take over the control? Should we just stop him from moving his feet and whatnot? So there's all sorts of crazy questions which come up when you start thinking about even the simplest of animations, especially when you want to do things like picking things up and pushing things and whatnot. So yeah, I want to say that hopefully by the next update we'll have some animations for you guys. But yeah, this is the first room, and sorry for just kind of rambling on, but I guess that's the whole point of this, right? It's about talking about the challenges and the troubles of making something, even as simple, or even something that would supposedly seem simple. Regardless, anyway, so over here we've got this little note here. It says an "I'm so sorry" by a Tina, and it's one of those story notes. Over here we're gonna have another story note. Now it's not there at the moment, but that's where you'll get some more information and whatnot. But this is pretty much the first room, and hopefully by now it's looking a lot more like a hospital room, as opposed to in the previous times where it was looking more like a hotel suite. Yeah, so another thing I want to talk about real quick is I want to talk about scale, right? So from the very beginning, when we started building this level and whatnot, scale and the average height and whatnot of the player was something that was really important to us, because everything kind of has to make sense. So for example, how far is the head from the edge of this door and whatnot, and things like that. How tall are you in comparison to this little prop here, but also the bed and whatnot. And we ran into some sort of troubles with that as well, and despite being erring on the side of caution from the very beginning, we did run into things like that, but those are also things to remember. And if you're listening in, you might say, well, why can't you just go here in the engine and you can start just tweaking these things up and whatnot, and just directly changing their transform. And you can do that, and that is a scrappy way of doing things. But when you start when you start fooling around with scales of everything, then there's a lot of remembering that you need to do, and it's it can cause a lot of problem because if you think about it, if you're in a game where you're walking around, then how many steps are you taking from here to there and whatnot, the speed of the player, everything can become a real problem when you start just kind of just clicking on things and trying to see, well, what looks good and just fixing it in the engine. Anyways, so over here, this little outline thing, my god, this post-processing effect, it took me a lot of time. And at the moment, there are still a couple of bugs with it. Sometimes it'll stay on, especially after I've interacted with the door or whatnot, but those are easy fixes, hopefully. But this thing, it took me a lot of time. And I had no idea how to work with post-processing volumes and shaders and whatnot. And moments like this, they're really frustrating as a game developer, but then something happened which really reaffirms my faith in this industry. And what I mean by that is, around the same time when I was playing or struggling with this problem, I was also playing this game called What Never Was. It's an indie game by a developer called Ake. And it was like a sign from God, you could call it, because at the same time, literally the same night when I was struggling with that problem, I started up this game and I started playing it, and I realized that this same game had this same effect that I was looking for, and I was so frustrated because I was like, God damn it, I mean, it's so easy and yet I can't do it. How did these people do it? How did this guy do it? And I paused for a second and I thought, wait, hold on a second. Why don't I just try and ask him? I mean, what do I have to lose, right? He's probably not going to respond, but what do I have to lose? And before even completing the game, I remember on the other screen, I was already typing up the email, and sure enough, I did email him. Now, this was what I emailed him. I'm not going to show you his response per se, but he did respond. And that was like such an aha moment for me because he gave me a fully in-depth response. He answered a lot of my questions and more. And also, he told me how he did it. He sent some material my way, some YouTube videos and whatnot, and he told me about how he had solved this problem. And as a result of that, I was also able to solve that problem. So that's another thing that I've learned during this program. I mean, don't be afraid to reach out for help. A lot of the times people might not respond, but that's okay. You know, that's okay. You've got nothing to lose by simply asking. But enough of that. So this is what the outside corridor looks like. Now, at the moment, the corridor is way too uniform, and you might actually end up getting lost. So that's something that we have in our minds, and we will have to make it a little bit more, less uniform, I guess. So we've got the names of the rooms over here. Also, the right click is for zooming, so that's going to be a pivotal thing when you're looking or trying to read things on the wall or whatnot. Also, you can see that there's been an amazing little grunge pass that has been done. And all of this is just rocket science to me, quite frankly. I mean, we have an amazing artist on the team, and he's been taking care of a lot of this stuff. So yeah, and at the same time, you can see a lot of the things from our block level are still there. And that's amazing, right? We talked about the block level and what it helped us do. And if you're someone who's followed along in the previous videos, you'll realize that the scale and the feel of the game and the space of the game is pretty much still the same. It is really very much the same. It's just we've gone in and we've repopulated it with new props. As for these machines here, well, they just have this ugly texture or material on them at the moment because we still need to work on the materials for that. And these are going to be a drink machine and a food machine. In the bottom right of the screen, you'll also be able to see some sort of a UI which kind of changes when you hover over an interactable. And again, we need to have a discussion about how that will work. What our UI design will look like. And you will also be able to interact with them. So this little thing opens here and you will get like a little drink or empty cup or something. And the same thing here for that. These are just little interactables which you will be able to kind of fool around with, and just to make this space look a lot more livable and believable. Now, the story here is actually going to be that people were marooned here in this little part of the facility, and they were making this or using this med bay as a makeshift home. So part of the story elements is going to be that when you do get these trays or whatnot, then they're going to be empty or they're going to be half full or whatnot, implying that resources were running short. And you will also find other things in the environment, i.e. notes or journal entries by these people, which are going to be complaining about how the resources are running out and whatnot. Over here, we've got a little sort of a situation. which if you zoom into, you'll realize that, you know, there were people here. This is some sort of a map, and they were kind of just fooling around on it, and they were trying to figure out, well, what's happened. And it seems like there's been some sort of you know, some sort of radiation leak or whatnot. They've closed off this door, and then they went ahead and labeled beds as to who's sleeping where. Just one of those environmental things or story related props where you might be able to get an idea of what happened. So that's kind of what's going on over there. Over here we have a computer terminal, and I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail about that. At the moment you can only zoom into it, but eventually, fingers crossed, this has been a real bottleneck for me. But hopefully when I get this working, you will actually be able to do things inside this interactable terminal and be able to read some journal entries and whatnot and get a little bit more idea about the people who were here and what they were doing exactly. So over here we have a locker room, and the situation is, if you come over here and if you try and use this elevator, notice how the door is locked at the moment, and if you try and interact with it, again we still need to do a silent pass and whatnot over the game, but there would be some sort of a negative sound telling you that the door is locked, and the red thing, the red light is going to hopefully reinforce that as well. But you do need some sort of a key card, which you can scan here at the bottom over here, which can help you unlock this door. And this key card happens to be over here in this locker room, and you're gonna find the password for this also somewhere in the environment. Again, we need to do the entire UI for this, and if you caught this changing from red to green, hats off to you. We can now open this door and we can find the key card over here. Now at the moment the key card is just a floating device, which I can't really even seem to interact with, and the reason for that is simply because it's inside the collider. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to quickly jump out of it. I'm gonna bring this out here, whoop, and jump back in, and hopefully, I think now it should work. So at the moment, now I've got the key card. We're going to need some sort of a very rudimentary inventory. Again, this post-processing thing, it's not turning off per se, and so you can kind of see through the walls or whatnot. That's a work in progress, but it's going to be an easy fix, hopefully. And now when you come here and when you press the interact button, then it's going to first unlock it, and on the second time, it's going to help you or allow you to open this door to this amazingly beautiful elevator. This interaction here with the elevator door will be running through animations as well. These button pushes are going to be through animations as well. So that's kind of what's been going on. These are the bathrooms, goes without saying. If you're curious as to what the stalls looks like, well, yep, that's what they look like. There is a room for a lot of things to be put into this in terms of making interactable cabinets and doors and openable things and whatnot, and it's just a matter of, at this point in time, you know, we haven't really just been able to sit there and knock down the entire little story, little nuggets that we want to have, and so for the time being, these doors and these cabinets and whatnot, they may or may not be interactable in the final version of the game. So that's kind of what's going on over here. And what else is there? I don't think I'm missing a whole lot else at the moment, so it seems a bit bland so far. It is a walking simulator, albeit, but hopefully once we get this terminal interaction going on, and once we've got the animations going on, and there's a couple other things. If you've seen the last videos, we've got a couple of different types of interactables in the game. So hopefully once these things sort of start coming along, then the game will feel a lot more alive. I'm gonna go ahead and let's see, get out of here. All right, so another thing that I want to talk about is, so I've been struggling a lot with this terminal, and if I go to my little test room, it's, you know, it's a little bit tricky. But I have been working on it, if you believe it or not. For example, we have this UI 3D widget, and you can see that there is a camera here that's staring right onto this widget, and we are creating a 2D render, and we're not then throwing that onto the screen, as you can see. So there is some process and progress there, and hopefully I'm pretty confident that by the next update we're going to have a sort of a working a working terminal. And obviously, it's not going to look as bland as these 3 red buttons and whatnot. This is just me kind of testing and fooling around and whatnot. But that's what's going on. And as far as this terminal is concerned, once again, reaching out for help, albeit in a different way. So I was going on the internet and I was trying to find things like that, such as 3D UE4 terminals and whatnot, and then I came across this blog post from the developers of Tartarus. Now these are Turkish developers, and they're in Istanbul. And for anyone who knows me personally, they know I spent a lot. Well, I did my entire undergraduate in Istanbul, and it's kind of ironic how I run into these guys now. I really wish that I'd run into these guys while I was there, and I could have actually met them, and I still hope to reach out to them someday. But anyways, it was just kind of cool to see this little in-depth, detailed explanation, and they explained to me exactly how they did these terminals, and it seems like a really beautiful game. I haven't played it myself, but I have looked at the YouTube videos and whatnot, and as you can see, a lot of what they did in terms of throwing the 3D widget onto the wall, putting the camera there, then throwing it onto their mesh and whatnot, we're using a lot of the same things. And this is just one of those things where, look, you know, part of game development and learning is simply just going and figuring out and seeing what other people have done and how they've done it, and hopefully then going on and helping a couple of other people on the way as well. So yeah, if this is something that interests you, or if and when I'm able to solve these problems, and if you want to know how I did some of these things, feel free to drop a comment or ask me, and I'd be more than happy to show you how these things are being done. So yeah, having said that, despite that, it's still been a real struggle. For those of you who are familiar with Trello, it's just like a notice board which you can kind of use to keep track of, and that's what we've been using amongst ourselves. And just to kind of go ahead and show you, a lot of work is being done. So currently we're on sprint 4, and these are the things I'm currently working on. As you can see, I've got some bugs here that I know and I need to get rid of, such as the hover bug, and there's a keypad bug and whatnot. And other things which I've been doing and whatnot, and which the other folks have been working on. So a lot of work is being done per se, and I'm really happy with the way things are going. And to talk to you a little bit about the kind of systems or whatnot that we're working on. So if I switch back for a second into the main map. Okay, so you notice how we've got these little panels, door panels here, and we've got these doors. And at the same time, you notice that there's this type of a door, and there is this type of a door, which opens like we saw. You know, this one goes here, this one goes to the left, and we've got these rotating doors. And so you can already imagine that there's 3 different kinds of door behaviors, and so you know, you can maybe kind of imagine that there's some sort of inheritance situation going on over here. So if you click on this panel, you can notice that this panel is expecting or listening for a door that is associated with this. So in this case, there's an elevator door associated with this panel, whereas for this panel, we have a locker room door, right? So now if I switch back here to the code, you notice I've got a base door class, .h, which inherits from a world interactable. Now this world interactable is pretty much everything in my world, and this helps me, the world interactable class helps me, you know, take care of things which every interactable in the world needs. So for example, the hover outline for all the hover interactables is being handled over here, and I don't have to handle them in all these other doors and whatnot classes and interactable classes. So that's the beauty of inheritance. So I've got a base door class, and I know that I need to be able to toggle every single type of door, and therefore I've got this virtual toggle function. And if you jump over to the implementation file, you notice how this toggle function is empty, because this will be implemented by the subclasses. So if I jump over here in my regular door.h, for example, you'll notice that regular door.h is sure enough, in fact, inheriting from a base door class, and therefore it has this function here, toggle door. So that's kind of what I mean. Every one of these door classes needs to have a toggle door function, and yet the way the doors open, right, they're all different. All the doors are fundamentally different. For example, the regular door, if you notice, it only has one mesh. So if I jump over here, you notice that this door only has one mesh, whereas these two doors, Well, there's two meshes here. There's two meshes here. So if I jump over to my elevator door, you can see that there are two mesh components. There's a door right and there's a door left. And similarly, the same thing for the locker door. So that's kind of what's going on here. And now for a second, if you're thinking, well, hey, what's going on with the toggle door function? Well, if I jump over to the regular door, here we have the toggle door function. And you notice over here, I've got this thing situation here. And what this is it's, for those of you who might not know, it's a delegate event. So at the top of my regular door class, I've got this sort of class/event, which is a multicast delegate, and it's called ftoggle_door. And I've got an ftoggle_door variable here. And what this does is, as you can see with this new property and whatnot, this can help you communicate between C++ and blueprints, which is really important. So if you notice, I've got this toggle door request here, which is an event, okay, in C++. And when the toggle door function is called, what I'm doing is you do something like event.broadcast, and this is your way of communicating with blueprints. So if I jump over here into my blueprints, and if I open up regular door, so this is, sure enough, this is the regular door. And you notice here this toggle door request event that is being fired, right? It is being fired when this toggle door variable is called. Or sorry, this toggle door function is called. And this toggle door function is called from the respective panels which are associated with the doors. So all this panel is doing, or all this event is doing, is it's creating a timeline and it's opening the world. All these other variables, such as door close position, door open position, all of these are C++ variables, and that's the beauty of C++ and blueprints, right? So you try and do as much of the heavy lifting in C++. So you notice I've got this F vector door close position, I've got a door open position, and I'm doing all of these initializations for the most part as much as I can. I'm going to do them in my C++ code. And then I'm going to have those variables ready, so hypothetically, you could just give this door C++ or blueprint. Once you create the blueprint, you could just give this to your designer or your artist, and they can do all of this stuff, right? So that's the beauty of using those two in conjunctions. I've been going around and I've been learning a lot of C++ with respect to UE4, and I see a lot of hatreds towards Blueprint. And I don't get that, because I feel like some people don't really necessarily understand that UE4, the way it's been built, is you have to use the two in conjunction, right? I see a lot of videos where the minute a person who starts using blueprints in a C++ tutorial, people just go nuts, and people are just like, oh, you're not using C++. But things like timeline, I mean, you can do them in code, but why would you want to when you can so easily do them here, right? Things like animation blueprints. I mean, are you seriously not going to use animation blueprints? What about things like 3D UI widgets, or any user interface? Are you seriously going to sit there and do pixel mathematics just for the sake of being pure and not wanting to use blueprints at all? Sure, there might be some games where the performances or whatnot might require you to do it, but for the most part, you wouldn't want to do it because that's not how things are done. So you better believe that the interactions over here are going to be in blueprints. Now, if I feel like if I'm doing a lot of heavy lifting, or if I need to do some things in code, fair enough, I will create a C++ class and then throw that and make a blueprint out of it and then use that. But for the most part, a lot of the UI stuff, I'm not going to be doing it in C++. And that's just, it's personal preference. But I also feel like it's, you got to work smarter, and you have to, leverage, and you have to prioritize things and whatnot in your learning. So that's kind of what I mean. These are all the interactables in our environment. And these are pretty much everything that has been based off of C++ classes. So one of the other types of interactables, I'm not even sure if we have one in the environment right now, but there are other types of interactables. So if I hit play for a second, and if I crawl over to this little chair, at the moment this is just a random test prop, as you know, but if you go over it and if you press the E button, then you're able to do this. But at the same time, if you hover back to where you picked it up from, you can put it back. You can also throw it on the floor, and at the moment it flies off, but you get the idea. So yeah, these are all the things that we've been working on. It's been a lot of stuff. It's been a lot of fun as well. And there's been some really tough and long nights, especially with this damn terminal. So I'm going to be really excited when I finally figure this out. But that's part of game development, guys. If you like what's going on, if you've got any questions, if you've got any comments, please just let me know. I'm excited to hear what you guys think. And I think that is going to be pretty much all for now. It's been an extremely long video, but at the same time, I realized that I made this video after such a long time and there was a lot of things to say. So if you made it to the end, thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.